So, hello everybody. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person today. Unfortunately, I'm in sunny Spain, so I hope the weather's good where you are too. But today I am doing a presentation to you about finding happiness. So, I work in the Derbyshire Healthcare Foundation Trust in the finance team. But alongside that, I also have a massive passion outside of work for cycling, and somehow it's now sort of come part of my job as well, which I'm going to go through in this presentation. The reason I created this is because I hope that it can help other people. I've been through a few mental health struggles, which I will talk about in this presentation just as a pre-warning, so just in case anyone finds that difficult. But there is a happy ending, and I made a book out of it as well. So I'll chat a bit about that, which still doesn't quite feel real. But my book is called Finding Happiness, Pedal by Pedal. And this presentation sort of tells a little bit about my story and what I sort of talk about in the book as well. So, who am I? So, as I said, I'm Amy. I work as a finance assistant in the NHS, but outside of that, I'm also a daughter, a wife, a sister, and a cyclist and runner as well. So, I really enjoy sport and being active. But it wasn't until lockdown in 2021, the second round, that I discovered cycling. I was working as a mental health nurse in the Derbyshire Trust as well. So I've had a bit of a career change. And while I was working as a nurse, which I did for 3 years, I worked with eating disorders in an eating disorder team. And the reason I went into this job is because when I was younger, my younger sister struggled with an illness called anorexia, which is an eating disorder. Very ironically, when at university studying to be a mental health nurse because I wanted to help the world and make sure nobody struggled with eating disorders and no one went through what my sister went through or what my family went through. I got an eating disorder while I was at uni, which is very ironic because when you've been around someone that has an eating disorder or you've had a family member with an eating disorder, you know how traumatic and horrible it can be, and you think that is not going to happen to me. But I found university quite difficult, and I found working with people that were struggling, I couldn't switch off from it. So I'd come home from a placement. One of my first placements was on a female acute ward, which is people with who are really, really unwell, who are too unwell to be at home. And I just came home and I was worrying about them, even though they weren't my responsibility necessarily as a student nurse. I'd be worrying about them, and I couldn't switch off. But me being me, I don't give up very easily. And because I decided I wanted to be a nurse and I wanted to help people, I didn't give up, and I carried on and I qualified as a nurse, and I ended up working in an eating disorder team, which is what I always wanted to do. And I coped quite well for the first 2 years. I can't say I loved it, but I did enjoy working with people. But when the second lockdown hit and we were working from home, I started to really struggle a little bit more. And I kind of realised that I'd never really enjoyed being a nurse, but I'd sort of forced myself into that job and felt like I had to stay in it. But when lockdown came the second time round, and I've always struggled with anxiety, and obviously I've had a bit of well, quite a bad eating disorder through uni, which I managed to get through. Lockdown hit and I was working from home and I started to get worry thoughts. I always call them worry thoughts. I think everybody has worries, but it's how much you listen to those worries. And for some reason, I couldn't switch off from those worries. And I just got really, really unwell, where to a point where I wasn't eating properly, I wasn't concentrating. My worries started turning into real fears. For some reason, I got into my head that something bad would happen to a service user that I was working with, and it would all be my fault. I'd be struck, and it just snowballed. I thought I was going to be struck off the nursing register, and then I'd, end up in coroner's court, and I'd go to prison. It was looking back at it now, I can tell it was totally irrational, but at the time, it was very, very real for me. And these intrusive thoughts, I just could not switch off from all day, every day. I had these horrible thoughts going through my head that I was a bad person, something bad was going to happen. I hadn't done anything bad at all. Now looking back, I know that, but at the time, it was just that what if, what if, what if, and it got to a point where I became so ingrained in intrusive thoughts and worries that I had to leave my job. I didn't make that decision myself. My husband and my mum, thank goodness for them, sat me down and said, Amy, look, you're not yourself. You're not very well. At the time, I couldn't see it, but they said, you need to take a break from work. Within that break, I realised that actually nursing was not the right job for me. And I said to myself, I don't need to stay in this job. I don't have to, just because I've trained in it, I don't have to stay in it. And that was kind of a relief for me. There were some really, really low moments after this because I felt like an absolute failure. I've got a picture of my dog there because he's always by my side and he's really helped me through a lot of struggles. He's always there for a cuddle when I need it. But I just felt like such a failure because I thought I've trained for 4 years to be a nurse. I've got a master's degree and I've only been a nurse for 3 years. Like this, no one's ever going to hire me again. I'm an absolute failure. Everything's ruined. And I just got really, really low. And it was at this point when my husband, I was off work, a bit too unwell to work. My husband randomly decided to buy me a bike. Now, I'd not ridden a bike since the picture on the right was when I was learning to ride. I had ridden since then, but for at least 10 years, I'd not ridden a bike. I learned to ride when I was a kid. I don't quite know what my parents dressed me in there. I mean, the colour combo, I'm not sure what's happening, but anyway, that was the style back then, I guess. And I learned to ride a bike, but then I never really enjoyed it as a kid. My dad used to force us out on family bike rides. I used to absolutely hate it, try anything I could to get out of it. But for some reason, when I was struggling, my husband bought me a bike. Now, me being me, I couldn't completely leave my job. I was also a swimming teacher. So I was just teaching swimming at the time, figuring out what I wanted to do, still feeling really low, still struggling a lot with anxiety. There were some really, really low moments. There was times when I couldn't be on my own. I didn't want to be here anymore. Yeah, it was horrible, and it's still quite sad to think about now, but I'm in such a better place and I've got such a lot of the reason for that is because of this discovering cycling. Alongside it, I did have counselling and have support from family, which I'm very grateful for as well. Cycling wasn't therapy, I needed that too, but cycling was part of my therapy and probably the thing that worked the most for me. So yeah, he bought me this bike, a little Carrera from Halfords. I hadn't ever ridden on drop handlebars, which are the handlebars that go down and under. Apparently they are more aerodynamic, which I now know about a little bit more. But it wasn't an expensive bike. I didn't have any cycling clothes, so cyclists wear padded shorts to make it more comfy and have shoes that clip into the pedals so that you're secure and you can pull up and push down and go faster. I didn't have any of that. I just had my running kit and this little bike, and I'd been cycling for about a month. I used to go out every weekend into the Peak District. I'm very lucky to live near there, and it was the only time when I felt like I'm worthy, or that my mind would settle down, like I wasn't worried about going to prison or something bad happening, or that I'm a failure. I just went on my bike and I could just switch off, and even if I couldn't switch off completely, it would give me a distraction. So after about 2 months of cycling, now I did have a fitness base because I used to run a lot, so it wasn't like I just miraculously got fit. But we have a caravan in Wales, which is 160 miles away from where I live. And I just thought that's one of my happy places, one of my favourite places to be. There's no signal there, no one can distract you. You're completely calm and peaceful, and it's just really, really nice there. It's perfect to go if you feeling like you need a break. So I thought, right, I'm just going to cycle there in a day. And my family were like, what do you mean you're going to cycle there in a day? It's 160 miles away. Don't be so silly. But if people tell me I can't do something, it means that I can. So I just set off in my gym clothes and I did it, and I cycled there in a day, and I just felt so good at the end of that day. And I can't describe, I don't know why, I just fell in love with cycling from that point. It just made me feel like there's something worth living for in life. Like looking around at the trees that have been there for hundreds of years, I thought all of my worries are actually insignificant. I'm just this tiny dot moving through half the country at the minute. I don't know anyone that's driven past me. I don't know them and they don't know me. And being insignificant was kind of a comfort for me because it made me realise that all those worries and all that feeling of failure, the majority of the world don't know about. So it's actually okay. So from there, I then got really into cycling, and a lot of people call me crazy, but I don't mind that. I know that I am. I got really into endurance cycling. So last year and the year before, I did something called the 24-hour time trial, which is basically where you ride your bike for 24 hours. It's around a set circuit, and yeah, you just keep riding for 24 hours and see how far you can get. In 2023, I got the bronze national medal, and in last year I got the silver national medal. So yeah, I rode I was really annoyed at myself because in 2023 I really wanted to get 400 miles, and as you can see I did 396.23 miles, so I was so close. So I was like, I've got to go back next year and do it again. And then last year I managed to get 403 miles, so I was happy with that. And as you can see from the picture, there's not just me, there's my husband there as well. So he now cycles too. I managed to rope him into it because he was missing out on the fun. So before, when we got married 6 years ago now, we didn't used to cycle, so I don't know what we used to do because now all we do is cycle. We used to actually get annoyed at cyclists on the road. I know that we can be in the way of cars, but we are just people riding. So if you're one of those people that gets annoyed at cyclists, just remember that we are people, not just annoying objects on the road. But I've been guilty of getting frustrated when I've been stuck behind a cyclist. So it's not until you do it that you realise, oh, actually, this is really fun. So yeah, I got really into it, and at this time I started documenting my cycling on social media, on Instagram and YouTube, and somehow it managed to grow. So I then went on to do a ride called Paris-Brest Paris, which is where you ride from Paris to Brest and back to Paris again. As you can see, the sleeping arrangements weren't ideal. We slept in a graveyard both nights. The first night we had grass, and the second night we unfortunately only had concrete. And on the top left-hand corner, that is me in a lot of pain. So one of the things I didn't realise you needed to do when doing a really long ride like this is to get a bike fit. So make sure that your bike is completely fitted right for your body so that your bum's comfy, most importantly, shoulders, neck, everything like that. Unfortunately, I didn't get that done, and I struggled with something called saddle sore, which is basically where, so you wear bib shorts. I had discovered these now and clip-in shoes, so I was a better cyclist than I was when I first started, but I still had things to learn. And it's basically where the seams of your shorts are kind of start to rub. And obviously when you're cycling a long way, so this was 1,200 kilometers, that rubbing gets worse and worse, and I didn't have a choice but to keep going because I'd committed to doing this ride. It's a ride that happens every 4 years, and you have 90 hours to complete it. So we did it in 71 hours. So basically we just rode for 400 kilometers, slept for 3 hours, did the same again, slept for 3 hours, did the same again, and finished. So it's long hours in the saddle, and it's not all fun, but there's something, I don't know why, but there's something about putting yourself through a challenge and putting yourself through a bit of pain, but at the end you just feel so good about it, and it helps you to grow as a person and realise that there's so much, well, it's made me realise that there's so much to explore in the world, and there's so many good things out there. There were so many kind people all the way that came out and gave us food, and all the little French villages, they all come out and cheer you on all through the night. So it's just such a great community, and it made me realise how, although we hear a lot of negative things in the news, there are really good things happening too, and lots of lovely people. So last year I did the biggest challenge that I'd done. So now I'm really into cycling, and I'm just trying to find the biggest challenges that I can do, because cycling is the one thing that I can switch off from. During this time I also did a finance qualification and got a new job back in the same trust in finance, completely different from mental health nursing, but I can't kill any numbers, so I felt like no prison worries or much anxiety in this role. So I was much happier in work as well, and just mentally in a lot better place. I think I've still got things to work on. I still am. I'm a real perfectionist, so I'm still very overthinker, quite an anxious person naturally, but having a good balance with work and life outside of work has really helped me. So All Points North is an endurance race. There's 10 points that you have to get to in the UK. You have to plan your own route. You're not allowed to pre-book any accommodation. You can book accommodation while you're riding, but I decided I would just sleep outside because it was easier than trying to find accommodation on bank holiday weekend when also trying to ride that far. So my first night I slept in a lovely bush shelter, which you can see in the third picture along. It could fit me and my bike in, and it kept me covered from the rain, so that was perfect. The second night wasn't so good. I didn't take a photo. I slept in a graveyard because I was heading towards Newcastle on a bank holiday Sunday night, and I was worried about being in the centre of Newcastle. I went through a little village. I saw a church. I thought I'll be safe there, and I slept in the graveyard. I didn't get much sleep, but I got what I needed, and I managed to come second female. So I did 680 miles, and quite a lot of climbing, over 51,000 feet of climbing. This was the first ride I'd done where it was multiple day, completely on my own with no help from anyone. And I was really, really scared going into it because I thought, well, the biggest fears, if I'm totally honest, were A, that I was going to get attacked by somebody in the night, and B, that something would go wrong with my bike and I wouldn't be able to fix it. And now those fears could have stopped me from doing this challenge, but I'm so glad they didn't, because I learned so much about myself on this that I can just keep going. That if I put my mind to something, I can do it. I had to work hard to get to this. I had to do a lot of training rides, and I spent a lot of my weekends riding to build up to it. But it was such a good feeling at the end. And I think the message from that is that if you want to do something and you put your mind to it, you can. And it doesn't matter if you don't come in the top 10 or you don't win. It's actually just achieving it and doing it that matters. So for this ride, you had 72 hours to be classified as a finisher. So I did it in 71 something. I can't remember the exact time, but I did it just within the time limit, and only 50% of people finished and 20% of people did it in the time limit. So I was really proud of myself for this, and that's quite hard for me to say because I don't know, it's just a thing, especially in British culture, I've noticed that we find it quite hard to say that we're proud of ourselves or talk about our achievements, but actually it's something that we should do more of, because it's good to be proud of yourself and it's good to challenge yourself and feel good for doing that. It wasn't easy, but it's definitely something that I would do again. But I definitely needed a shower at the end, because after 71 hours of cycling up and down hills and sleeping outside, I'm surprised my husband let me in the car at the end, to be honest. And finally, last year, a big challenge that I did was cycling from Venice in Italy back to Derby, and we did this to raise money for an eating disorder charity. So me and my husband cycled together. So at this point, I've been cycling for about 3 years now, and somehow my social media has grown, my YouTube channel has grown, and I've been sponsored by a bike brand called Pinarello, and their factory is in Italy. So we had this idea of cycling from the factory to their shop in London and then back to Derby. And this was just amazing. And it was at a point when I felt like last year, it was last September actually, so it's not that long ago. I'm settled in my job, my mental health is really good. I'm not having counselling, not having therapy, and the bike is just making me happy and exploring new places, and we're just so grateful that we got to do this. So we did 2,000 kilometers in 8 days. We did about 250 kilometers a day. We rode through the French Alps, we rode through and then up through the centre of France, and it was just amazing. And we raised over £11,000 for a charity, which we're really, really happy about. And I went from 3 years before this wanting to end my life, seriously considering ending my life, to now looking to where I've come, cycling through France, looking around me and cycling through the mountains and thinking, why on earth did I want to do that to myself? And it's because it's all depends on the situation you're in. And I'm so grateful I've had these opportunities. But I always say I'd be just as happy riding through Derbyshire Peak District in the countryside on my bike. I'm just as happy there as I am in the French Alps. I just love being outdoors and riding my bike. And I'm just so grateful that I discovered that. And I think the message I always want to give is that no matter how low you get or how much of a failure you think you are, there's always a better day on the way. And there's always something to look forward to if you let there be. Like I when I was in a negative mood, I'd always be thinking, oh, there's nothing good about life, everything's rubbish, there's nothing to look forward to, I'm a failure. But that wasn't helping me think in that mindset. It's very hard at the time to just suddenly change how you think, because when you're ill, you can't do that. But you have to hold on to hope and hope that things will get better. And for some reason, I had that little bit of hope in me. And I'm so glad that I did, and that I got to discover cycling and all the amazing things. But it doesn't need to be cycling, it can be anything that makes you happy. And I think it's so important that we get that balance in life, because we can spend our lives feeling like we have to do things. There are certain things we have to do, of course, like we have to go to work to pay the bills, but just get that balance of making sure you're enjoying your life as well, because there's so many happy moments and things to do and enjoy. And sometimes I think we can rush through life and then it's too late to do the things we want to do. So yeah, just enjoy things as much as you can and know that the happy times are coming. But anyway, so from when I was really low to finding my happiness again, and it's not all, sunshine and roses. I do still go through low times. I think we all do, and I do still go through anxious times, and I have to make sure that I do things to make sure that I don't go into overdrive, because I am quite a hard worky sort of person. Like, I don't like sitting around doing nothing. If I do something, I go for it. As you can probably tell with the cycling, I've kind of really gone for it. But I started writing a book when I was really not very well. It never was going to be a book. It was just sort of a personal diary to help myself. And when I got better and realised how unwell I was, I thought, when I was ill, I felt completely alone and that nobody else understood, even though there was lots of people that did understand that had been through similar. And I thought, if I had this book now and read it and saw this person went from where they are to being able to be happy again, that would have really helped me. So I thought maybe I can make it into a book, and I did, and I sent it to some publishers, and somehow it got published. Still doesn't really feel real. But in the book, I sort of start each chapter with a little mental health tip. And I just want to share a few of the things that I've learned since starting cycling and since getting better that sort of keep me on the happiness road, as I like to call it. But as I say, it's not normal to be happy all the time. And it's not normal to be sad all the time. It's about having that right balance in life and just being okay with all the emotions that you feel. I always say you have to feel sadness to be able to feel happiness. So don't think, if you're sat here thinking, oh, I'm never happy, or I'm never sad, I'm never happy. Maybe that's something to be a bit concerned about. But if you're sat there thinking, oh, I get sad, I do get happy, but sometimes I get sad, that's completely normal. Like, it's completely normal to be upset and to be sad and be frustrated. So let yourself feel all those emotions. But these are just things that I do to keep myself as happy as I can be in all the different emotions of life. So number one is focusing on the positives. I think it's so easy to focus on the negatives in life. And I'm a culprit of this. I do love a good moan. I like to moan about things, but I also have to snap out of it as well. So I let myself have a little moan at least once a day because it feels good. But I have to try and remind myself that no amount of moaning is going to change the situation. So you have to always try and put a positive spin on things. For example, if I'm on a bike ride and I get a puncture, no amount of moaning about it is going to fix the puncture. It's just going to make me be there cold for longer. I've just got to get on and fix it. So I might as well have a laugh about it and fix the puncture and get on with my ride. Or it's like, if you're stuck in traffic, it's so frustrating when you want to get somewhere, you're running late and there's a crash and you're stuck in traffic, you're at a standstill, and you can just sit in your car getting so frustrated about it. But no matter how frustrated you get, that's not going to make the traffic move. So you might as well put on the radio and have a sing song to yourself and just enjoy a half an hour of doing nothing, which you probably never get to do normally. So it's about the way you look at things. And I think every day, no matter how low or how bad your day's been, there's always something good. Even if it's just a tiny thing like the sun coming out for a second, there's always something little and good in the day. So try and focus on that. And then if you're really having a really low day and you're really struggling, I always find that thinking of a happier time helps. So like, look back at some memories on your phone. You might have some funny videos or photos. Look at that and just remind yourself that it's not always bad and that those happy times will come again. Number two is letting worries go. So this is a big one. I think we all worry, and I am definitely a worrier, but I have to try and remind myself that we as humans create our own worry. You know, we have this world that's very, very busy and there's lots going on and there's lots of different things we can worry about. I mean, we could take a whole day worrying about one thing if we really let ourselves. So our mind creates our worries, and we have to remind ourselves that no amount of worry is going to fix what is going on. Like, you can worry and worry and worry about something, but if you're not doing anything about it, it's not going to fix it. So I always ask myself a question: is what I'm worrying about now, can I do anything about what I'm worrying about? If the answer is yes, I can do something about it, then go and do it. If the answer is no, I can't do anything about it, then I need to stop worrying about it and let it go. Because most of the time we're worrying about something that's already happened, we can do nothing about, or we're worrying about something that might happen in the future. And if we can't do anything about it, there's no point in worrying about it. So I always try and tell myself now that worrying is wasted time. it's a lot easier said than done. You can't just switch your worries off, but sometimes just taking that step back and reminding myself that really, really helps. And another thing, like I've mentioned before, when I was riding all the way to Wales, that idea that we're insignificant, most people don't know about us or our worries. So if there is something you worry about, you think you've done wrong, the majority of the world don't know about it. And if you think you've done something wrong, that's okay because we're only human and we all make mistakes. So that's something I've sort of really had to learn because I'm really bad. If I make a mistake, I feel like the world's going to end. But actually, it's okay to make a mistake. So just remind yourself that the majority of the world doesn't know about your mistakes, so it's okay. Next is being grateful. So this is a picture of me at my one of my book launches with all my, it was a close family and friends one. As you can see, I'm doing a little smile there, so I'm very happy. And I think it was because I was in a room full of people that really care about me. And I think we can go through life comparing ourselves to other people and, they've got a bigger house than me, they've got more money than me, they've got a better car than me, or whatever it is. But we forget to be grateful for the little things that we have, like having food in the fridge. That is something to be so grateful for because some people don't have that. Having a roof over our heads, having a pillow, a comfy pillow at night, a comfy bed, having a friend or a family member to talk to. And I think research has actually shown, mental health research has shown that the more that we practice gratitude, so writing down 3 things each day that you're grateful for at the end of your day, research has shown that actually improves your happiness levels and your mental well-being, because being grateful for things is really good for us because it reminds us of what we've got, and it helps us to stop comparing ourselves to other people. There's a famous quote that comparison is the thief of joy, and I think there is some truth in that because we can put ourselves down a lot by comparing ourselves to other people, but actually we just need to focus on ourselves and just remember that all those little things we have that we forget about. So I'd really like everyone, like after this presentation, to try and think of 3 things that you're grateful for and maybe try and do that for the rest of the week and just see if that makes any difference to you. You can either do it first thing in the morning or at the end of the day. So first thing in the morning when you wake up, what's 3 things you're grateful for? Or it might be easier to do it at the end of the day because you've had the day and you can think about things that have happened in the day if you find it a bit more difficult. But it's something I try and remember to do. I'm not very good at remembering every day. But when I do it, I do notice a difference because it's even just going to do food shop and being able to get in a car and drive to the shop. That's something that even some people can't do. And when I'm riding my bike, I'm grateful that I've got legs that can allow me to cycle because some people don't. So it's just reminding yourself of those things that we take for granted. Next is less judgment and self-acceptance. So through this whole journey of going through a mental health struggle, through school when I was younger, I always used to feel a little bit different to everyone else. I felt like I didn't really fit in. I used to try and fit in with what everyone else was doing, and I was quite a self-conscious person. I've struggled quite a lot with acne when I was a teenager, and I used to hate what I looked like. But since I've started cycling and I've been through all the different things I've been through, I just started to think, do you know what? I don't care what people think anymore. I'm just going to be myself and just enjoy my bike rides and be silly and just when I'm on my bike, it's like my inner child comes out. So I'm 28 now, I don't mind showing my age, but I feel like I'm back to being a teenager again. And there's me with a big pack of porridge in my bib short pocket because we needed some fuel for the ride we were doing the next day and we couldn't fit it in our back pocket. And I just think we have to just accept ourselves for the way we are and don't try and fit yourself to fit in with everybody else because you are you and that's what's great about you. So just have more self-compassion. So one of the things that I really noticed when I was struggling and also before is that I always used, and I still do, if I'm totally honest, sometimes I always used to speak to myself quite harshly in my head. So if I do something wrong, I'm like, oh, goodness sake, Amy, you're such an idiot in my head. Or I'm like, oh, why did you do that? Like, you shouldn't have done that. You would never say that to a friend. Like if a work colleague or a friend came to said, "Oh, I did this. I'm a bit worried about what I've just done," or I've made this mistake. You wouldn't go to them and go, "Oh, you're such an idiot. Like you should know how to do that. Why have you done that?" You wouldn't say that to a friend. You wouldn't have any friends, I don't think. So, well, I hope you wouldn't anyway. Um, but we speak so horribly to ourselves in our heads all the time, and I think it's really good to try and speak to yourself like you're a friend. So accept yourself, accept the mistakes that you make and move on from them instead of beating yourself up. So I always try and use the phrase now, I can and I am. So that like kind of gives me a little boost in the morning. So I can get through today and I am gonna make the most of it, something like that. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to remember me anyway in 100 years' time. So I might as well just live my life the way that I want to. Because when I left my job as a nurse, I was really, really worried about being judged. I thought, my friends would think, oh, she's wasted loads of time at uni. My family would be disappointed. But I'm so much happier having changed jobs and doing something that was right for me. And I think all my family and friends are happy because I'm happy. And I think if you've got the right people in your lives, people that really matter to you will accept you for who you are, and they won't judge you. And if people are judging you, then maybe they're not the right people, and that's okay. That's their problem. So just be kind to yourself and also for others as well, because we don't know what's going through somebody's head that's next to us. When I was ill, I would be completely myself when I was out with my friends. No one would know what was wrong. I was very good at putting a mask on at work when I was a nurse. No one had a clue that I was struggling. And I think we never know what's going on through someone's head that's sat next to us. So always just be kind to other people and remember to check in on them as well. And don't judge people. If someone sends you a bit of a snotty email or maybe is a bit snappy with you, they might be going through something that you're not aware of. So just have that acceptance of, okay, maybe they're going through something that I'm not aware of. We're nearly at the end. So one of the really important things I think most people know, because it's always everywhere, that how good movement is for you. And I think for me, it's been finding that balance of the right balance of movement. So when I had an eating disorder, I used to run a lot for the wrong reasons and I used to do too much. Whereas now I've got a balance of making sure that I'm fueling myself enough. I have a balance of running, cycling, and walking as well, and rest days, which are very important. I do have days where I do nothing. Well, even though I find it hard, I have to force myself to just sit down and just have a chill day because that's really important too. But I think, if you're somebody that sits at your desk all day and doesn't get that movement in, try adding in maybe just a 10-minute lunch break walk. I know it's sometimes hard to take a lunch break, but we all should take them, and just going outdoors for 10 minutes and going for a walk around the block just makes a world of difference. Or before work, if you set your alarm half an hour earlier, go on a walk to start your day. It just makes such a difference, and it's so good for you mentally as well as physically. Community is a big thing that I've learned that is a key to happiness. So I think it's quite easy, especially after lockdown, to isolate yourself. And if you're struggling to not meet up with friends and not do things together. But actually, research has shown that loneliness has a really negative impact on mental health. So it's really important to stay in contact with people, and that's one of the things about cycling that I didn't realise. There's such massive community there, and I think it's just so important to keep in contact with people. And if you're doing really well at the minute and you're happy and you're not struggling with your mental health, maybe just send a text to all your friends and just check in on them, because I think it's something we don't do enough. We don't check in on our friends and really ask how they're feeling, because we're worried about if they do say they're struggling, what on earth do I say? I don't know what to say. But actually, there's nothing you need to say. It's just them knowing that you're there. When I was struggling, um, my friends didn't know what to say, but they didn't need to say anything. The best friends that I had were the ones that didn't really say much. They just invited me out for a coffee or invited me out to go on a walk with them. And, they didn't tell me what to do or give me advice. They just listened to me and were there like normal. So I think it's just having that sense of community and not being alone is really important. Then the final thing is that I've learned the most, just being yourself, and, find the thing that makes your soul shine, is what I always say. So if all you do is go to work and you don't do anything for yourself, work might be your thing that you absolutely love, and that's great. I do enjoy my job, but I don't go to work thinking, oh, I can't wait. I don't go to bed at night thinking I can't wait to get to work tomorrow. I don't think many people do, and if you do, then you're very lucky. But I think it's just about finding things that make you feel good and making sure that you plan time in to do them. And we don't all have loads of time to do something every weekend for ourselves or spend all day doing something. But even if you can just for 10 minutes a day have 10 minutes of you time, whether it's 10 minutes of walking or 10 minutes of looking up some new recipes that you're going to bake, or just doing something nice for yourself. Because one thing I always ask myself, and someone said it to me, I can't remember who, it's probably a famous quote, but when I went to a support group ages ago, something I used to tell my service users as well when I was working as a nurse was one day you're going to look back on your life. Hopefully, you'll get the privilege of being sat in a rocking chair and you'll look back on your life and what do you want to see? And that really stuck with me because when I was ill, when I had an eating disorder, I thought I don't want to see a life that's just ruled by not being able to eat what I want because I'm worried about putting weight on. I want to see a life where I've done as much as I can and enjoyed it as much as I can. So that is how I try and live now. There's obviously things you have to do, you have to pay your bills and everything like that. But outside of that, I try and live my life as full as I can because I think because of what I've been through and how low I have been, I really appreciate the happy times now. So that is it from me. I'll just finish on the fact that I've got a book out. So if you are interested in reading that, then it is available online if you just search it on Google, or you can get it off Amazon. So yeah, that doesn't really feel real. And in terms of what's next for me, this year in June/July, if you've heard of the Tour de France, I'm going to be cycling every stage of the men's Tour de France, including the transfers as well, which has never been done by a woman before. So I'm very nervous because it's a really massive challenge. I'm going to be doing over 6,000 kilometers in 30 days. I'm taking a month of unpaid leave off work that's been agreed. So luckily I'm in a very supportive workplace. So the finances will all be good. And yeah, that's my next challenge for a mental health charity. So yeah, that's it. And I just want to leave you with a message of just no matter how low you get, life always can get better. And it's not, I don't ever like to say just because I can, it means you can too, because we're all individual. But I really do believe that anyone struggling, if they find the right thing that can bring them out of that struggle, they might always struggle, there might always be low times, but there will be happy times too, and it's not all bad. So yeah, just if you know anyone that's struggling or you struggle yourself, don't be scared to get help and try and encourage that person to get help because the sooner that you get help and start, working towards getting better, the sooner that you'll find that happiness again. So yeah, that's it from me. So thank you for listening, and I'm sorry that I'm not there in person. I wish I was, but as I said, I'm currently in Spain training for the Tour de France ride. So it won't all be fun, but I probably have a bit more sun than you. So sorry about that. But yeah, thank you for listening.